So chapters 40 and 41 explore the aftermath of Pip's discovery that convict number one, also known as Abel Magwitch, is Pip's benefactor. And Pip is coming to terms with one of Dickens' main themes in the novel, which is nothing is as it seems. He assumed that Miss Havisham was his benefactor because it seemed like it, but just because it appeared that way doesn't make it so. And that's true on so many levels in the book, thematically. After Convict 1 goes to sleep, Pip, and it's about 5 in the morning, Pip comes on downstairs from his apartment. Remember, he's alone because Herbert is in Marseille, France, and will be for another 5 days. Chapter 40 is the first chapter of Pip's redemption stage, and it's the perfect time to inform us that he has fired the Avenger. He no longer has a servant anymore. So that's perfect because that was definitely a symbol of his sin stage of spending money he didn't need to be spending. And he resolved that he's going to tell everybody that this strange man in his home is his uncle. And as he's coming downstairs to talk with the watchman, he trips over somebody. I fell over something, and that something was a man crouching in the corner. So here we go with another mystery. And so he's nervous. There's a lurker, and he goes and talks to the watchman about it. And the watchman lists 3 different men who it could have been, and Pip's like, no, one of them is his uncle, okay? And he says, okay, well, you saw him then. And Pip says, yes, oh yes. He says, and the person with him? Oh, great. Somebody is following Convict 1. And here's what the watchman has to say at the bottom of 347. He was a working person. He had a dust-colored kind of clothes on under a dark coat. Well, that's a clue. I'm not going to tell you the answer to that clue, but it might have been revealed in an earlier video, so, All right, but that's really unsettling for Pip, is that somebody is following Magwitch. So when he goes back in, Magwitch is awake, and he's so excited that Pip has resolved to tell everyone that he's his uncle. And his nickname is going to be Provis, okay? So we got to keep track of all these names. Convict 1, Abel Magwitch is his real name, and Provis is the name he's going to go by. I want you to remember, though, Abel is a biblical name. Abel from Cain and Abel. So that's also something that's symbolic and significant, and we'll try and make some connections later. Now, when Pip feeds the convict, he eats in a ravenous way that was very disagreeable. He looked like a terribly hungry old dog, and Pip is disgusted by this. So you can see how Pip still has a lot of redeeming to do. He's got 18 chapters worth left. But it's also a contrast to when innocent Pip fed him on the marshes and he saw him eating like a dog, and then he was just curious and coy. He thought, oh, look, he's eating like a dog. Now he's judgmental. He's too good for this man, and he hates how he grabs at his hands. But Magwitch is so proud of him. He says, this is the gentleman I made. He says, and he pulls out his pocketbook, and it's full of cash. And he says, there's something in that book worth spending, dear boy. It's yourn. All I got ain't mine, it's yourn. Don't be afeard on it. I come to the old country to see my gentleman spend his money like a gentleman, and blast you all. And he's cursing all the people who used to judge him. The colonist who kicked him in the dust, the judge in his wig. So we can see that convict is a convict because he was judged against in a court of law. He has poor articulation, poor education, and so he may have very well been profiled, if you will. And so Pip does not want him to stay. Harboring a fugitive is illegal, and he's nervous about that. And he keeps asking when he's going to go. And Magwitch is like, oh no, I'm staying. I'm here forever. I'm not going back. I've come for good. And Pip says, won't you die if you get caught? And he says, yep, death by rope in the open street. Magwitch loves Pip and has been thinking about this his whole life, ever since they met on the marshes. Also, we've talked about how different characters are in their different stages of life. And so Pip has just entered his redemption stage. Mrs. Joe was in hers when she died, and it looks like Magwitch is in his, because he pulls out the New Testament. And this Bible is something he now carries around. So Pip is able to make arrangements for Magwitch to sleep somewhere else, and also to get him some clothes to wear for a disguise. And then Pip goes and confronts Jagger.
Is it true? Do not commit yourself. Do not tell me anything I do not want.
Well, that is what I've been told, true.
Told implies verbal communication. You cannot have verbal communication with a man in New South Wales.
I was always led to believe.
Nothing. Nothing. You believed what you chose to believe. Mm-hmm. It's not my responsibility. Now, I understand you have an uncle staying with you. Yes? Yes?
Yes.
Right. May I suggest you buy him some new clothes? Advise him to spend most of his time in your rooms and perhaps have a haircut. Yes? Meanwhile, if you are writing to your friend in New South Wales, you may choose to send him that. The balance of our accounts. Mm-hmm. My services are ended. Good day, Mr. Pip.
Pip is broke. He owes money. He overspent what Magwitch had sent him. Herbert finally comes back 5 days later. And in this time, Pip has lost weight, he's lost sleep, he's really struggled, but Magwitch has Herbert swear on his black New Testament. And so they go ahead and they put Magwitch in his lodging that Pip has arranged right around the corner, and they're sitting in front of the fire, and they have a talk about what Pip's plans are going to be. And this is chapter 41. And so just to cut to the chase, Pip has decided the following. He's not going to take Magwitch's money anymore, and he's going to try and pay him back for all the money that he spent. And then he's going to try and find his history. He needs to know why Magwitch was in jail in the first place, so he's going to ask him point blank, and that's chapter 42. And then the third thing they're going to do is get rid of Magwitch. They're going to get him sent out of England. It just got really sunny. So it's a three-pronged plan here, and Pip is really struggling. Pip says, think about this. I am heavily in debt. I have no expectations, and I have been bred to no calling, and I'm fit for nothing. That is so true. Had Pip stuck with Joe, he would at least have a trade in blacksmithing. But instead, all he's been doing is reading books with Matthew Pocket. He does not have any professional training in any field. He was just being bred to be a gentleman. So what is he going to do now? Not to mention, he's still Herbert's secret benefactor. How is he going to fund that? Is he going to have to cut Herbert's ties now too? So many questions. When you go on and read chapter 42, it might be a little tricky because it's from the first person, and it's Magwitch telling his story in his broken English, but we learn a lot of information in chapter 42, so stay tuned.